Welcome to More Than Words, a podcast about treating the whole child, brought to you by the Reading and Language Learning Center. I'm your host, Tristen, and today I'm joined by Fusion Academy Alexandria's head of school, Casey Pina, to discuss children's pace, pressure, and growth both inside and outside of the classroom. Hi, Casey, how are you?
Good. How are you, Tristen? Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course, we're excited for you to be here. What a great topic. Great at any point in the year, right? Pace, pressure, growth,
Yes.
all of the things. So thank you for
Yes.
being here today.
You got it.
Yeah. Well, let's start with a little introduction. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So right now I'm the head of school over at Fusion Academy here in Alexandria. I've been in education for a long time. I have a background in psychology. I've always been a business owner myself. So this is actually the first position where I'm not the owner. And quite
Wow.
honestly, it's really, really nice because I don't have to think about a lot of other things. I can just focus on my team and the families that we're serving.
How cool. And you said you're at Fusion Alexandria, so that's where you are physically, but can you tell us if folks were looking to find you, like where would they go online?
Sure. So you absolutely could go right to our website here at Fusion, the Alexandria page. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all those places just under Casey Pina.
Perfect. Well, then I'll list that in the show notes and you can find you that way.
Great.
Awesome. Well, let's hop into this discussion. This is, like
Okay.
I said, going to be great. Many parents are, trying to solve all of these challenges, like trying to improve their kids' schedules, with accountability, structure, all of that. But we talked before this, and you said sometimes the real pressure is kids' capacity. So what exactly do you mean by a kid's capacity?
Yeah. So when most people think about solving a student's challenges, they tend to go straight to structure,
Mm.
better schedules, tighter accountability, more systems. And those things absolutely matter, but they only work if the student actually has the capacity to meet them. And capacity is really about a student's internal bandwidth. How much can they take on cognitively, emotionally, and socially, and still stay regulated and able to think clearly? So that's really what I'm talking about when I say capacity.
Yeah. A great way to describe it. Very easy to see. And so parents are often navigating like a ton of expectations, right? They've got all the academics that their kid has to go through, all the different activities after school, during the school day, wherever, on the weekends. Obviously their social development and their independence. So how is it that parents can tell when their child may already be at capacity?
Yeah. This is the important part, right? Is being able to actually catch on. So I tend to think about three clear, pretty grounded ways that parents can check to see if their child is already at capacity. The first thing would be noticing the shift from thinking to reacting. So if your child is increasingly irritable, they're shutting down, they're avoiding, they're having sort of oversized emotional reactions to things, that's often a sign that they're no longer operating from a regulated thinking state. They're
Right.
overwhelmed. The second thing is watch for inconsistency, not just performance. It's not just about their grades dropping, but it's when a child can do something one day and seemingly they just can't the next, forgetting, procrastinating, or struggling to start. That kind of inconsistency often signals their internal bandwidth is maxed out. So that's two things. The third thing is look at recovery time and energy. A child's capacity has little to no recovery between demands if they're operating in a good space, right? They're within capacity. It's like they really can shift and move between things and they don't need a lot of recovery. If they're constantly exhausted, they need excessive downtime or they just need reset after school and activities that's outside of what feels reasonable, their system's probably working overtime just trying to keep up.
Wow, those are all really interesting. The inconsistency surprised me. I feel like often that is associated with like ADHD, and it's interesting to think about like if you're at capacity, it doesn't have to be, I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't have to be a diagnosed ADHD type of thing. Inconsistency can show up when you just simply have no more space to do anything else. There's no more space in the brain.
100%. That's all of us.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have anything to do with a diagnosis. It can just be, I mean, we could be doing this for ourselves, right?
Right.
We would like to think that as adults, we're paying attention to what our own capacity is, which
Right.
we also know we tend to stretch ourselves.
Of course.
And then we have those expectations for our children and our students. But if we pay attention to those, it's a whole lot easier. A whole lot easier.
Absolutely. And, sometimes parents will push past, or like push more expectations on their kids or push, their agenda because they think that like that challenge really builds resilience. So how can you find that happy balance between, healthy challenge and true overload?
Yeah. Well, challenge does build resilience, but only when a child can stay engaged while they're doing it. The balance is just this: stretch them just enough that they can try hard, right? Like that's fine, but not so much that they shut down. Like you don't want them to get to a place where it's now not productive. So resilience is lovely when you really stretch, get to the edge of that elastic band, and then know that you can't go past that because there's a chance that it can snap. You don't want to do that. Stay within the stretchy part where they can actually function. Yeah. And a simple way to gauge that, if your child is still willing to engage, make mistakes, and recover with some support, that's healthy challenge.
Okay.
If it's beyond that, if they're avoiding, melting down, constantly exhausted, that's overload and that's no longer productive. The goal is not to push harder, it's to get the right size challenge so they can succeed, build the confidence, and then gradually be able to take on more.
Right. And so what are some of the other like subtle signs that a kid's schedule or maybe even their expectations are outpacing their developmental pace?
Yeah. So one thing that I always think about, if they're just holding it together at school and then they come home and they're unraveling, meltdown, they're irritable, sometimes even complete shutdown, that means it's too much. It's just too much. And we see that a lot with students who come to us. Everything starts to feel like a negotiation or a battle, right? Where it's like, if you, and then I, and that back and forth, even with simple tasks like homework or getting themselves ready for school, transitions to go off to practice, those suddenly start to require excessive prompting, or there's resistance or conflict. That's not always defiance. They're just depleted.
Right.
That's their way of saying like, I've had enough, except I just am not sure how to tell you.
Right.
Other things could be they rush through and they avoid things that they used to handle well. You'll see a drop in how they care or the kind of effort or the follow through. And oftentimes, as adults, teachers, parents will think, they just need to try harder. But really what they're showing you is I've reached the end of my bandwidth. Yeah. This is just too much for me to do. And I think one of the big pieces is if they've lost their natural curiosity or joy for something that you once saw, we really need to stop and take a look at that, because it's often not because they no longer like it. Right. It's something has pushed too far and become too much that it doesn't feel like a joyful thing anymore.
Wow. This is so funny because as you're saying all of this, I'm like, these are the same things that I would look for in myself if I were like, I'm at capacity. These are the things I start to notice, right? Like,
yes,
like I don't really want to do the dishes, even though I know it's going to take me 5 minutes. Oh, it just feels like so much work, right? And I feel like sometimes we forget that kids are just tiny humans.
Right. And they just don't often have the words, or they want so much to please us.
Right.
They want to live up to what we are showing them that we want. And so they're not going to say, I'm at my capacity.
Right.
And they may just not even understand that. So these are the ways that they show us if we just pay close attention.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that natural, like losing their natural curiosity or joy for something, because I think sometimes parents see that and think like you said, they're just being defiant. And it would be like such a bummer to see them continue to lose that joy for whatever it is that they have like such enjoyment of, I guess. Simply because they're at capacity and we're like not noticing.
Well, yeah, I mean, we want them to keep all the joyful pieces.
Yeah.
We want to highlight the things that they really love. It just means we have to do it in a way that's just enough and not too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we were recording, we'd had a chat and you had mentioned that growth really requires space. So what does that look like in a child's day or maybe?
Yeah. Space is really, really where growth happens. I mean, if you think about this, if you have a glass and you pour a liquid into it and you pour all the way to the top, there is no more room for anything else.
Right.
And we're no different. All of us as humans, we have a capacity. So if we fill up all the space that we've been gifted and we don't leave any extra room, there isn't space for something new thoughts, new creativity. So building in regular, predictable time where nothing is being asked. It's not time dependent. There's no practice. It's just a time when a child can have the space to exist. And maybe that looks like rest. Maybe it looks like play, but they need that time that is not scheduled. It looks like parts of the day or the week that are intentionally unstructured. No performance, no deadlines, no outcomes, just time to decompress, think, create, even maybe do nothing at all. There's nothing wrong with doing nothing at all. It also means having moments of real connection where you're not correcting them, no coaching, no directing, just simply hang out.
Yeah.
Let them just be, talk, listen. It's actually like the best part of parenting. Right? Like it's literally the best part of parenting. Oftentimes, as parents, I'm a parent myself, it's so easy to get in our own way of the things that when we talk about being parents, it's the stuff we love.
Yeah.
Like the quiet little moments when such and such happened, I had no idea, and they talked to me about something that I didn't even know they were thinking about this. Those cannot be planned. Yeah.
I love that. My husband was just talking about visiting with my niece, and she, recently got to see the new like Mario movie or something, and he was like, she talked for 15 minutes straight about like how excited, and she like just had the time to connect with him and share something she was really excited about, and it brought a big smile to him.
So good. Yeah. Those are the best moments. The other thing that happens in that time is just the physiology. It's just natural for the nervous system to reset during those times. When everything is scheduled, that's not how our systems run.
Right.
They don't really run on our schedule. They run on their own schedule. Right. So when things feel safe and calm, that's when all that regeneration happens and the nervous system is like, okay, this is good. Like, I feel good. We need that.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. So when students come to Fusion, right, they come to you guys after they have been having a hard time in like a more traditional classroom environment, right, like public school. Are there patterns that you guys notice in their schedules or expectations?
Yeah. The number one thing that I see when a family walks into my office is overwhelm. The student's overwhelmed, the parents are overwhelmed, and it could have to do with the environment that they were in, the pace that things were going. I often will have parents and students say, I love my teachers. I actually love where I am, and the pace is too much, or the social dynamics are just moving at a pace that I just can't keep up with. Right. Expectations that are placed on them. It's that whole piece of just feeling incredibly overwhelmed. And then the student really feels like they're not capable. Often by the time they get here, there's a lot going on with confidence. They don't really want to be seen. They don't want to be out amongst other students because they've gotten to the point where they really feel like, I'm just not even sure I'm capable
Mhm.
of doing this. So those are a lot of the things that we see. And also this idea that something that looks like underperformance is often just not the right match. Where parents will come in and just have this fear as if maybe their child is not capable. They don't want to say that,
Right.
but just feeling like they're underperforming and, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? When honestly, most of the time, it's just not the right environment. It's not the right match. And as soon as you make that shift and reestablish safety and settle their nervous system down and get down to, so what do you really need
Right.
to thrive? Then everything shifts.
I think that's like such a big thing to realize, and I think it's talked about a lot now, right? And people are getting to the point where they're realizing every kid is different and every human being needs something different. But it is so important to realize that and put someone on their track, not everyone else's track, because then you start to
Yes,
realize where they truly flourish instead of being like putting them into a box and saying you got to do this way and be amazing at this and this is how you're successful. Like not every school system's like successful is the same successful for every kid.
that's right. That's right. 100%. You said it perfectly.
So what's a question that you wish more parents ask themselves when they're making decisions about their kids' schedule or their expectations?
This maybe was my favorite question
Yeah.
that you asked, is
Oh,
that I feel like, as parents, we really do need to take a step back and ask, what outcome am I truly aiming for with my child? It's so easy to get caught up in, keeping up with external expectations and what everybody else is doing. But the question is like, do you really understand your child's needs in order to feel confident, capable, and genuinely be able to thrive? Because if you do, then it makes making choices for their education and how life is managed
right.
a lot more clear. So what is the outcome you're actually seeking for your child?
And it's kind of funny. I feel like when a kid gets to college, right? Like it's now on them to figure out like what do you want to do? Like how do you want to spend your time? Blah blah blah, right? But
Yeah,
sometimes I think we forget that in the traditional school system, before getting to college, it's almost just like, here's the planned path for you. You got to get through public school. But I really love you saying, like, what outcome am I truly aiming for my kid? Because it may not be everyone else's outcome. We don't have to keep up with the Joneses, even though in the Northern Virginia area, we love to do that.
this is very true. Yeah, that particular thing is a conversation I have with families all the time, especially once students get to high school. Parents often will feel like, okay, now we got to turn up the pressure.
Yeah,
There's so much to do, and this is when it really matters. And, to an extent, they're not wrong.
sure.
It does really matter. But this idea of building out a schedule where we can build in the appropriate time and space to write a college essay,
Right.
to have an internship where you get real life experience, have a mentorship so that before you head off to college, you have somebody that you can give a call who's not mom or dad. Because
Right.
sometimes you don't want to call them about things. But if you had a mentor before you head off, that would really be a great support. So just stepping back and thinking about how could we build this rather than what is everybody telling us to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if a parent listening wonders whether their child might be overloaded at this present moment, what are
Sure.
some like gentle first steps that they could take to restore that balance?
Yeah. To me, I think the most important thing is on a daily basis, build in what I would call a little protected pocket. And
Mm,
it doesn't need to be long, but build in that protected pocket of downtime every single day.
yeah.
Not just free time that could be filled up with something else,
Oh, okay.
or where you say, okay, now you get screen time. I'm talking about downtime, like
Yeah.
flop on the beanbag and like, let's just eat a snack and chit chat.
Right.
Completely effortless, where there's nothing expected. That's really the easiest way to start opening up space. Maybe reduce one demand, just one. You don't have to announce it. It doesn't need to be some grand big change. And instead of overhauling everything, because that also makes students feel overwhelmed. Like, oh, we need to rethink the schedule and we don't really need to do that. We could just shift or reduce one demand that we have. And it honestly, it might be a thing that a parent is thinking, no, that's sort of something they have to do. It might be just don't have them do the dishes for a few nights, right? Like just open up one demand to give a little bit of space, and a lot can happen when you just give a little bit of space.
Yeah.
I would say maybe shift one daily interaction from directive to a connection. So instead of, we can go back to a household thing. Don't forget to take out the trash.
Right.
Literally just turning that into, hey, it's time for the trash to go out. How about we do that together?
Yeah.
And then have a conversation on the way out to the curb. That's a whole different dynamic than a student feeling like there's a task that they have to do. They don't really want to do it. Like nothing lovely happens in that time.
Right.
And could you just take 5 minutes to go with them and have a conversation? It opens up space.
Yeah. I love that. And it's such a simple way, because a task like that's so small, you realize like it only takes a second for either one of you to do it. And now there's two of you doing it, right?
Yes.
But like you said, it's an invitation as opposed to a demand. And like even when you said it to me, I was like, oh, that feels lovely. Let's go do something together.
Yes. Right? Yeah. I mean, it's beneficial on both sides.
Absolutely.
It's not you just sort of giving something back to your child, but it's also you get to do something. Like, isn't it nice to have 5 to 10 minutes to connect when otherwise you just wouldn't?
Oh,
yeah.
How fun. I love that suggestion. I feel like I'm also seeing a lot more of like younger kids for sure, but younger kids like joining in the kitchen with those little like stools and like getting to chop up their own little banana at the same time as, their parenting. So
love it. I know my daughter, I had a bench for her. As soon as she could reach the counter, she knew, okay, I'm going to learn how to use utensils. I can help cook.
Yeah.
It just makes everything taste better too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I love it. Well, that was my last question for you, but do you have anything else you want to leave the folks with or add?
I think the two things that I would say is ask questions and stay curious.
And it's funny, we just got to talk to another lovely human, Meg Shaw, and the same messaging, but applied to a completely different thing. Stay curious. I think that's just, maybe we all need to stay curious most of the time. It's a good theme.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been fabulous. And I know people are going to take away some really good, like actionable items that are like just small, easy things to do that I think are going to help in their household. And so thank you.
I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much to the audience for listening. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a little rating and review. It helps other folks find the podcast, and we'll chat with you next time.